welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. The nation's electoral system has undergone several reforms to bring it in conformity with contemporary politics and in tandem with best international practices. Now, some of the recent reforms have come under legislative and public scrutiny, leading to reversals of some tough decisions at some point, with confidence that the system will get better for the future. Now tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will look at critical components of the Electoral Act. But just before we do that, let's get to see this report by Mie Ugidi.
The climate is already wearing a political look at the podium ahead of the 2023 elections, while in the boardroom, discussions are on to finalize the amendment of the Electoral Act. Many issues are seeking for amendment, but Clause 52, Subsection 3, bordering on the electronic transmission of results, is the most debated for obvious reasons.
Undoubtedly, the electronic transmission of results will improve oversight of the results collation process by granting citizens access to election results in real time.
At the last check, the National Assembly has empowered Inec to decide on the mode of transmission of the result, and the Conference Committee of the National Assembly has started receiving contributions from stakeholders.
The Commission appreciates the decision of the National Assembly to empower Inec to determine and deploy appropriate technology in future elections. For us in Inec, this is one of the progressive decisions by our National Assembly. As you finalize on the Electoral Amendment Bill, I urge you to continue to endow the Commission with powers to determine what technology to deploy in our elections at the appropriate time.
E-voting is of 4 stages. First, building of biometric register for voters, e-accreditation of voters, e-balloting, and e-transmission and collation of results. And Inec seems prepared for the e-journey.
You can see the different types of biometrics you can use, retina, even odor. And so with bimodal authentication, no person can come to vote more than once.
Preparations are so detailed, even the flagrants of a voter can be detected. Direct data capture for voter registration, card reader for voting, and Z-pad for uploading of results. But all these 3 now infused into one device, the Biometric Voter Authentication System, BVAS.
We believe that this multi-layer process will eliminate the process of voting by identity theft using another person's PVC. Where the voter fails the fingerprint and facial authentication, he or she will not be allowed to vote.
And we also want to use it for result upload. So this all-in-one technology will replace all we have been doing.
You can deploy technology, but don't forget, the Nigerian politician would explore ways to undermine that technology. And we would end up with computer-generated leaders. We can see there are attempts to undermine the deployment of the smart card reader for voter accreditation.
While these measures are aimed at sanitizing the process, the issue of internal party wrangling stares negatively at the system.
You see, most of the cases we had between 2015 and 2019 were results of absence of internal democracy in political parties. They were as a result of ego of the leadership or power tussle.
We are deeply concerned with every other stakeholder's misgivings about the troubling issue of internal party democracy and how, instead of abating, we seem to have driven neck deep into it to the point where the judiciary have not only become stand-in cheerleaders to all the anti-democratic shenanigans befitting the political parties in Nigeria, but our land friends, the lawyers, in their acts are inexorably driving the death nail to coffins of progress of political parties in the country.
If such are not properly taken care of, the democratization journey may be delayed. For the political parties, the compulsory adoption of direct party primaries will lead to dictatorship and more expensive.
The ayes have it.
Amendment.
However, the document is still a work in progress. Mayor Ogede.
And that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. We'd like to welcome to this program distinguished Senator Kabiru Gaya. He is Chairman, Senate Committee on Inec. Senator, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much for being here, and good evening, Nigerians.
Right. Let me also welcome to this program the Honorable Ogede Ima Egu, a member of the House of Representatives, elected on the PDP platform. He represents Amu of Federal Constituency. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Honor to be here again. Thank you.
All right. We are also joined tonight by Mr. Osita Okechukwu, the Director General of the Voice of Nigeria. Good to see you, and thanks for being here tonight. Okay. And let me also welcome to this program Mr. Festus Okoye. He is the Inec National Commissioner for Information. He joins us from Port Harcourt via Zoom. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
All right. And also with us tonight on this program is Professor Femi Mimiko of the Department of Political Science, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. As a former Vice Chancellor of the Adekunle Ajasin University, Akungba in Ondo State. But tonight he's joining us from Washington in the United States via Zoom. Prof, thanks for being with us tonight on the program.
Thank you, Cyril, for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
All right. So, as we always do on this program, we acquaint you with the procedure. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. When that time comes, you'll find the telephone numbers to call. And if you call it in tonight and you do get through, when your call is passed through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we always encourage you to go straight to the point, ask your question or make a comment. Don't bother about the greetings. You don't have much time. And hopefully tonight, the phone lines will be very good, clean and clear. And so many can get their views aired on this program. So once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Critical elements of the Electoral Act. But a good place to start with is one aspect that was hotly debated. It attracted the most comments from Nigerians across board. And we'll start off on that premise and talk to Senator Kabiru Gaya, who's Chairman, Senate Committee on Inec. I'm sure when we say one of the most
issues,
yes, discussed and argued over back and forth, attracted
and finally agreed on.
and finally agreed on. Of course, you do know I'm referring to the issue of transmission of results by the Independent National Electoral Commission. And at first, there was a heated debate over it, and it would seem that at some point the Senate reversed itself.
Yeah, first of all, I want you to understand how the procedure, or the Nigerians understand how the procedure of making up a bill in the National Assembly. When a bill is moved on the floor of the Senate, and it's agreed that the bill should continue and is be referred to the committee, then the committee will now have to do public hearing. Public hearing means to get the views of Nigerians. All stakeholders were invited to come and give their opinion. On this particular bill, we spent over a year on it. We had a retreat in Lagos for 2 days with all the stakeholders, the INEC people, the other advisors, generally Nigerians who are interested in making up contribution to the bill. And also we invited the Office of Attorney General, whereby if the President asks their opinion after the bill is passed to them, they will say, yeah, they were part of the bill making. So a lot of things have been discussed. A lot of views have been brought to the floor during the public hearing. And we have to set a technical committee, which I'm happy Okoye is here, who we call him Professor Okoye, was part of that technical committee that were able to form this, this bill and reply it to the Senate for discussions. And there was the views of this, the most discussed issue is the issue of electronic voting, whereby the Senate says it agrees on electronic voting, But the issue of transfer, that's where we have the problem. Because when you say you want to transmit result, it means you are transmitting it live. And when you are transmitting a result live, there is tendency for it to be hacked, either at the beginning or at the middle of the transferring the result, or at the end of the receiving point. Because when you are transferring, it means live. When I bought party A, and party A now has so number, it will appear on the screen. And when the next person bought it, party A again, that number will be added on the screen directly. So that is transmission directly. And when you are doing that, there is a tendency of this hacking. And what Inec did in Edo State was that they got the results finished at the ward level, signed by the agent, signed by the returning officer, and they took picture of the results and then transmitted that picture, which you go there. You cannot be able to hack a picture along the process. So that was much more transparent. And that's why when they came and explained to us in the Senate and views of Nigerians, because we are representatives of the people, we discuss every bill we want to do, we discuss with our community, we discuss with our constituents, and the Nigerians and the media, you have helped to enlighten people more. And then there was a lot of cry that let us look at this issue of transmission. And finally, the Senate had to do recommittal of its own bill and look again at that session and then agree with the procedure. Okay, so is there anything missing here? Transmission, transfer. Is there anything we're missing here? Or basically, we're talking about the same? Basically, they are the same but slightly different. Okay. All right. We'll go over to Port Harcourt via Zoom and link up with the Inec Commissioner, for information, Mr. Festus Okoye. Enlighten us, if you will. Is this a matter of semantics? Transmission, transfer? What do you call it?
Well, I think that as a lawyer, I tend to look at it from a very, very different angle. One of the basic things in law is that you don't leave room for any form of ambiguity, so that people do not begin to debate the mechanics and mechanisms of transmission and that of transfer. So I think that in drafting the law, there should be some level of consistency. If the National Assembly wants results to be transmitted, they should be very categorical in relation to the fact that they want election results to be transmitted. If they are talking of transfer, they should also be very categorical in using the word transfer. But you cannot use the word transmission in Section 52 and then you go to Section 63 or Clause 63 this time around and use the word transfer. It shows some lack of consistency, and I believe that it was my expectation that the Harmonization Committee should have taken a second look at it. But having said that, I think that let me also commend the Senate for backtracking from its previous position. It shows clearly that sovereignty belongs to the Nigerian people, and that if the National Assembly is the true representative of the Nigerian people, that at all times they must also listen to the views of the Nigerian people. And at this time around, I think that they did the right thing by listening to the views of the Nigerian people. But on the part of the Independent National Electoral Commission, we have consistently maintained that both Section 78 and Section 118 of the Constitution gives us prerogative, gives us the power to determine the procedure and process and mechanisms for the conduct of elections. But that our challenge is that the processes embedded in the Electoral Act for result collation is basically manual. And we wanted a situation where that manual process of collation of results will be removed or will be obviated. Because if you transmit election results and at the end of the day, that electronically transmitted result. It's not used for manual, it's not used for purposes of collation of results and declaration and making return. It becomes constitutionally a waste, and it becomes constitutionally impotent. So I think that what the National Assembly has done is to give us that leeway and that window to make a determination on how to proceed. But the electoral amendment bill is still incoherent. When they finish working on it in both houses of the National Assembly and it's transmitted to the president and he assents to it and it comes back to the commission, we will now sit down and look at what has been passed and our place and role in it, and then we determine the way forward.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll return to you in a moment, but let's go over to Honorable Imaigo of the House of Representatives. And easily we'll put the same question to you. And how did you view the entire process? The public views, the views of Inec, and of course, the views of the parties.
Very much. I think the Inec man here, our friend Festus, said it very clearly that the Constitution allows Inec to determine the form that election will take place. And so to that extent, for us to begin to dabble into it as legislators and say INEC cannot determine that results should be transmitted electronically, I think we are merely acting on travails. And I think that we should allow the views of Nigerians. If you go around the country, everybody wants results to be transmitted electronically. Because when if you transmit them manually, as we have been doing, these results can be hijacked on the way, figures can be changed, and don't forget that you have some constituencies that are in riverine area. Sometimes you are on the boat, it takes about 1 hour to get to upland. Sometimes some rural areas, roads are very bad. So right now, INEC have said they've gotten up to 93% in terms of ability to transmit. They have just about 7%. And they promise that before 2023, they'll be able to cover that 7%, so that in the whole country, results can be transmitted electronically. Let me state that all of us have telephone, and anywhere you are in the country, you can send money to anybody, you can send messages, you can receive phone calls, etc., etc. And if we already have that, it shows that everywhere in the country is service. But INEC is saying further that any area where there's problem, they would try to boost it. Well, I don't subscribe to the view that the results can be hacked on the way. I think the danger and fear of hacking is just as bad as the fear of it being physically hijacked and figures being changed as they've been doing before. So my opinion is that we in the House, we've gone through it as Section 52, we have said the results should be transmitted electronically. You know, initially that issue created a lot of controversies. I supported that it should be transmitted electronically. Some people did want it to be transmitted electronically. But INEC have said that they have the capacity. Over the years, National Assembly have been making funds available to INEC. And INEC have been moving well ahead. And in a country like this, for results to be credible, of course, you have to show people that their results, when they cast their vote, it will matter. If you look at this country, people hardly vote. Look at Lagos State. We have over 6 million registered voters. How many people go out to vote on the voting day? Less than 2 million, 1.7 million vote. And it's like that all over the country. What is the reason? The reason is that people believe that their results will not count. But if it is accepted that all results should be transmitted electronically, everybody knows what that means. Data can go in the air and nobody, the result can arrive at their destination. Everybody gets the result as quickly as possible. I'm sure that 3/4 of registered voters will be voting. Unlike now, sometimes less than 20% come out to vote. So I think that let's listen to INEC. We've given INEC the responsibility. We have provided a fund over the years through appropriation, and they've done the right thing. And they keep saying it. crying everywhere that they have the capacity to transmit results electronically. Why are we crying more than the bereaved? So those of us in the Senate and the House, we should look at Inec. Who are the people who say we can do it? They have the technical expertise. They know it better than us. I think we should give them a chance to do it in a way that all Nigerians will be happy and satisfied.
Okay, so it's a good time to go over to Mr. Osita Okechukwu, who's right there, who's right here in the studio with us here, and let's hear your views on this.
Let me join Senator Gaya in his submission. While I agree with my Honorable and Festus Okoye, the point of the matter is that we must all thank God that we have advanced our democracy to the extent that in 2020, in spite of the COVID, there was by-election in Nasarawa State, and INEC told us to look out for a portal in case you are interested in knowing the result before dawn. And we hooked up to that portal, and we were getting results. It came to those states election. INEC as well told us there is a portal. I hooked up to that portal. And the results were collated, and even my great party, the APC, we lost that election, and we did not cry to high heaven. Then it came to Ondo State. INEC notified the world that they're also going to maintain that portal. I think that what we are doing essentially is trying to either claim credits as a political party or trying to find some mileage. Otherwise, INEC can set the stage by creating a portal. And if there are caution that let's not put all the eggs in one basket of transmission, that it will be good as well to have our old documents in terms of preserving the result sheets by manually. I think that we're not, none of the sides, we're not missing the point as well, because when those who are expressing fears over hacking, we cannot dismiss them entirely, because we know that about 4 years ago in the US, as great as they are in terms of, and as savvy as the United States is in IT and digital advancements, they complained that there were manipulation by the Russians. So if there's any way, as Okoye said, that the law could be well tailored, I do not see anything wrong that we're transmitting electronically, and at the same time, keeping our old documentation, because those documentation might come to bear fruit in case of areas where there are conflicts. Because they say that caution sometimes is not fair. It's just trying to make assurance double sure. Because as the Senate are not ruled out electronic transmission, I thank them for that, because we cannot dodge from science or improvement in technology. And we have seen how the dynamism of the digital world, even some of us in broadcasting, we broadcast initially with only shortwave, but today we've also gone digital. So if there's any way in terms of the law, both could be combined, it would not be a bad idea, given the position of the issue in Nigeria. So let nobody try to beat each other over it. The point is that INEC had taken off. If in less than 2 weeks, if INEC also opens the portal in Anambra and they keep the documentation, we'll see how it goes. I do not see anyone canceling the other one out.
All right, thank you very much. Let's now go over to the US and link up with Professor Femi Mimiko, a political scientist and a watcher of unfolding events on the political scene here in Nigeria. Share your thoughts with us on the arguments back and forth, the decisions now taken by both the Senate and the House of Representatives, and of course, what this means for the political development of this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Good evening once again, fellow members on this very distinguished panel. I'd like to put the issues in context by noting that there are a lot of things wrong with the Nigerian political process. Of course, we know the penchant of politicians to want to intervene and mess up the electoral process. We know the monetization of politics. But there are many, many of those issues that have continued to damage the transition to democracy in this country. But I think on this issue of electronic transmission of results, I think we have every reason to commend the key stakeholders, particularly the National Assembly, and of course the civil society that led the advocacy for this adoption of the electronic transmission of results. I think it's beyond debate that the major point at which electoral malpractice takes place in the electoral process in this country is at the level of collation of results. There's no question about that. And so if Inec has indicated its desire to have results transmitted electronically, it has demonstrated that it has the capacity to do that. I wouldn't want to see or recognize any reason for that matter why this should not be done. The question of hacking doesn't really matter much. Transmission of results electronically is not rocket science. So many countries are doing that and doing it very well. And so nothing stops Nigeria from taking advantage of the best of technology that is available to ensure we get the best out of that process. But it's important to recognize that the whole debate and all that pertain thereto, they speak to the fact that the Nigerian political process is getting increasingly robust. It's a process that is demonstrating that we are making some advancements. Of course, there are a lot of things, as I said, to be worried about, but we must recognize that democracy and democratic transition is a process. And I think on this note, the fact that the Senate backstepped and decided to do what an overwhelming percentage of Nigerians actually felt we should do, I think is commendable. I think it's also commendable that the civil society led this advocacy in a very powerful and convincing manner, such that even Senate had no other option other than to go along this path. But I'd like to make this point that for me, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with the discretionary nature of this provision, giving INEC the powers to determine the nature of the technology it requires to deploy or it likes to deploy in relation to the entire electoral process, including transmission of results. I think it's a bit dangerous. Dangerous in the sense that, yes, it's good we have INEC today that is technology savvy, that is evidently committed to having a clean electoral process. But it's possible to have an electoral management body that is not as committed as this current INEC to transparency. And so when you say that it has the option to pick whether to transmit elections results electronically or otherwise, the discretionary nature of that provision makes me a bit uncomfortable. I would have preferred a situation in which we are explicit in the law that results need to be transmitted electronically. And so we don't give whoever is running INEC the option of whether to do it or not. I mean, a mischievous INEC, a mischievous chairman of INEC that is not really too interested in transparency, and this is not too, it's not something that is too far-fetched. There's a possibility of that happening. Then you see that the entire process will mess up.
So you'd rather have it spelled out in law that it has to be transmitted electronically.
I want us to remove that discretionary dimension to it, and that will be much more effective and assuring. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. But well, there's still another knotty issue here. And of course, it's also one that's been attracting a lot of comments and debates from across board. Then it has to do with the direct primaries for political parties. And this one, of course, it's clear that not all united on this matter? Let's start from you.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that the members of the National Assembly, majority of us agreed on direct primaries. And the House itself came up with the bill. In the own part of the bill, they said direct primaries. It was just in the Senate that they have a two division, whether direct or indirect. But when we went to the conference, we have to agree with the views of the House that we should all go to direct primaries. Many reasons to that effect. I was a product of direct primaries in 1991. I contested for governorship election, and the policy was that we should do direct primaries. Direct primaries means you go to your wards. In Kano, I have 171 wards in my constituency as Kano South. But in the whole of the state, we have 484 wards. So elections took place on that day. With all contestants or aspirants with their posters pinned on the wall, and you line behind the poster of the candidate you want. And that was more transparent. You don't buy votes. You cannot buy votes of 20,000 people in one location. You cannot. It means as if you are popular and people like you, then it's easy for you to be voted into that office as a nomination for a candidate of a political party. It was good and transparent. It also makes a candidate to go around to his constituency and get to see the people, talk to them, understand their problems. If he wins election, he can be able to solve some of those problems for those people. I remember when I was going around for my campaign, I went to so many villages, and they told me they don't have water, they don't have electricity, and so. And when I became governor, I started solving those problems that I promised these people. And that's what kept us moving. I left government house since 93, and I'm still in politics up to date. So I thank God for that. So what we're saying, direct primaries is been the best for politicians. Some people will say you spend more money, but you spend more money on indirect primaries. When you bring delegates, it means like for a governorship election in my state, you need about 3,000 people to vote for the governor. So somebody with the highest money, if somebody pays 1,000 naira per delegate, somebody can offer 300,000 per delegate, and he can win election. But that person may not be even known in the state. He is only being known to delegate by giving them money. In various states, they can do that. So all I'm saying is, the better we take democracy to the grassroots. And then we also campaign for membership drive. If members of our parties have got a card, what role would they play? So the best role you can use them to play is to elect their candidate for election. I mean, they can go to direct primaries, then elect the candidate they wanted. I think that would be good. And some people are saying, why are we going for double campaign? I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Make yourself familiar to your people. Go around to these areas, let them know you, and let them vote you because they feel you are the right candidate. Just like when I passed through my primaries and I won, there were so many people senior than me, older than me, but I defeated them during the primaries. And then after winning that primaries, those people that helped me to win the primaries now became my campaign officers. And they went around to every village, every house to campaign for myself and my party. So that's why we said, when you go to direct primaries, it means if you do well for your people, you can easily go back to them. Or you don't have to save the money, use it only on the day of the primaries, for the direct primaries. And then a candidate that put 1 billion to win election definitely is investing money into that election. And when he wins election, he may recover more than 8 billion also.
Okay.
So we reduce corruption by so doing.
All right, let's go over to Honorable Ibaego. Well, that was a decision that didn't go down well with your party, the PDP, initially. Let's talk about that and what you have against that.
Well, if my party takes a decision, of course, that will be binding on me. But as a person, I don't really see anything bad in direct primaries. Because in direct primary, you meet the people know you. In other words, you are carrying politics to the grassroots. If you know that you are good, you are popular, and your people want you, why not do direct primary? Because sometimes, if you're doing direct primary, it costs a fortune. But like I said, I'm like somebody torn in between two ends. Since my party wants, my party is saying they want direct primaries, they probably have a reason for that too, because there are both pros and cons in it, you know, because sometimes indirect primary, you know, makes it easier. It removes less confusion. The problem is with direct primary, you're going to be having thousands of people vote in different locations. And so issues of security are very difficult to maintain. And then you will see a lot of people too will create unnecessary problem because there's a crowd. But if it is direct primary, it is indirect primary, the number of voters are fewer. It's easier to manage them. They could be put in a place, and then they can vote, and the result can easily be ascertained. I'm sure that is what my party, the PDP, is thinking about, why they decided that they don't want direct primary. So either way, it is good. But if you ask me, well, I'm a PDP, I will go with the decision of PDP. Thank you.
Okay, well, you've made that clear that you might at some point be pitched against your party, or you go with your party decision, even if you think otherwise. But Mr. Osita Okechukwu, what's your view about this?
Actually, I'm one of those who will go for the direct primaries. But the only reservation I have is on one point. One, the party should be allowed to decide how they go about such matters. Either they go through, as we did when we came together to form the APC, the merger committee, we said we can either decide at each unit to go for direct primaries or indirect or even consensus. But if you are going by consensus, that it had to be affirmed either by yes or no. We also know that most of the time when you talk of direct primaries, most of the time it doesn't happen that way. It becomes an ideal. Because most of the political parties do not have any capacity to manage electoral process. It took Inec about 20-something years now, learning, training, and retraining staff in order to come to the level where they are today. The parties do not possess that machinery. Yes, I understand what distinguished Senator Gaya was saying, that they were all lined up. You'll find that in most of the wards, depending on those who are managing the ward, they might not go direct primary the way the distinguished Senator Gaya said, and they will have to learn from other places. One of the larger political parties on earth is the Congress Party of India. When they took off, they were not even doing primaries at all. What they were doing is they set up committees to go around the vicinities, the provinces, to know which of the candidates that are running and who is more popular. Because what they look at is the electorate. Because history has shown as well that from APC, PDP, down to the list of the political parties in Nigeria, combined together, we all do not make up to 30–40% of the electorate. So it is left for the party to make its own mistake. If you make your own mistake, the electorate will, if there is free and fair election, the parties have to embark on self-censorship and discipline. So to come and categorically say it must be direct primary, it doesn't work fully in every circumstance, given the scenario where we find ourselves. So it could have been better for the National Assembly to allow the parties to make their own choice. If the APC, in terms of undertaking direct or indirect primaries, makes mistake, it's left for the electorate to punish any party that does so. If the party is punished, the party learns in the next election. So it's a process of learning. It's not every time that you have to use the law to state what will happen in the management of the political parties. The political parties are owned by individuals. Yes, we need to popular participation. Whether you do direct or indirect primary, there's a popular participation, because even when delegates are elected, it's also the membership of the party that will, at a certain level, elect those delegates that will come to Abuja or wherever the convention is holding. So if the National Assembly at the end of the day agree, I do not have anything against that, but if they do not, it had no infringement on the advancement of our democracy. Because political parties are supposed to be people of like minds who should decide the way it suits them better. Because if you don't do so, you might come to a situation where in some of the wards, there might not be anything like direct primaries. Because one, the parties do not possess electoral management skills. Secondly, the individuals who control the parties as well will bring to bear their own influence, no matter how little it is. And by so doing, you might also end up having factions that might be difficult to reconcile by those political parties. But if you allow the parties, they should use consensus where it is suitable. They should go direct primaries where they want, and they should go in direct primaries where they want. At the end of the day, the electorate will decide which of the parties will triumph. And if you continue to maximize procedures of making free and fair election, you have done the best to the Nigerian state and the Nigerian people. Then any party that becomes reckless or careless, it becomes their business, and they will lose the election. As long as we pay more premium in getting Inec to well-funded, well-monitored, and well-guided, and like we'll keep on saying, that if the referee is a good referee, it means the league will run well. If you watch the Premier League in England and the La Liga and others, what they are doing well is that most of the time the referee tries to live above board. And when they even thought that the referee is not doing well, what they did is what they introduced what they call VAR. So we should pay more attention to Inec and their processes more than what the political parties do with their own internal mechanisms. It is their business. If they want to lose the election, it's their business. When we made mistake in Zamfara, we were punished by the judiciary. And we will learn from that.
Okay.
So if we make any mistake anywhere, the ruling political party, let the electorate judge where we go. If the PDP makes any mistake somewhere, let the electorate judge, and down the line. So what we should advocate and canvass sincerely is how to build up a credible Inec.
All right.
Just as near credibility like the referee in the Premier League.
Well, we'll be asking the views of the electoral management body. But before we do that, let's go back to Professor Mimiku. Direct primaries, indirect primaries, there are arguments back and forth. Some say it's more expensive to conduct direct primaries. Others say no, it's fraught with corrupt practices to conduct indirect primaries. What do you say, Prof?
Let me start by, I'd like to put it this way, that ordinarily the argument can be made that a political party is an association that people join willingly without any compulsion whatsoever. And we shouldn't do too much of regulation of the activities of these political parties. Yeah, I mean, that argument can be made and it will be legitimate. But I'd like us to know that one of the key elements, perhaps the most important element of democracy, is popular participation. The democratic process, to be so properly called, must give room and encourage mass participation in the political process. And so, if you look, or if you put all of this, direct primary, indirect primary, on a scale of preference, I want to suggest that we go by the way of direct primaries. It is not because, we are not saying this because it is perfect or that it doesn't have its own pitfalls, but the point is, number one, indirect primaries, as we have seen in this country, make room for a high level of corruptive practice in terms of how politicians tend to go out to buy up delegates and all of that. And of course, the generality of the people who are members of those political parties are invariably alienated. And so when we talk of apathy, limited participation of people in the electoral process, this may actually be some of the reasons. And so for me, direct primary would deepen the scope of participation of people in the political process. And that would be a major canon of democratic practice that we will be strengthening if we go that route. It's also the case that if we use direct primaries, we will reduce the scope of violence, desperation, anything that can help us to take and distill desperation from the political process is welcome. Because when people who want to be delegates, when they look back and imagine the type of humongous amount of money that goes into the pockets of those who are delegates yesterday, they do anything. They will rig elections, they shoot guns just to be elected as delegates. In the process where you have mass participation, direct primaries, those shenanigans are considerably reduced. Of course, also the monetization that we have seen in the indirect primaries system will considerably be moderated. And so why we are not suggesting that direct primaries are completely infallible, we are saying on a scale of preference for a fledgling democratic system like ours, nothing is wrong if we help to shape the nature of the engagement and the operations of the political parties. And so for me, direct primaries holds much more promise than the indirect primaries that we have seen that is so susceptible to corruption as it has been demonstrated in the Nigerian political process over the years. Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's go over to Mr. Festus Okoye. Well, yes, Inec would have to abide by whatever the law says eventually. But tell me, in either scenarios, either direct, indirect, leave it to the parties, can the electoral management body cope? Do you have the manpower to do that? And as you answer this question, I want you to have at the back of your mind the current scenario where, you know, all kinds of primaries are conducted, candidates emerge for elections, and within a few weeks and months, it's even difficult to determine which of the candidates should run in at the end of the day, because cases all over the place. Inec itself complained at one point in time that all kinds of litigations are disrupting the process.
Well, let me put it this way. Within the compass of the Nigerian Federation, we operate constitutional democracy within the context of constitutional democracy. And in this particular democracy, we have a fundamental law of the land, which is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. In the legal parlance, we call it the ground norm. And every other law flows or gets its bearing from the provisions of the Constitution. Now, if you look at Section 228 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it gives the National Assembly the power to provide guidelines and rules to ensure internal democracy within political parties, including making laws for the conduct of party primaries, party congresses, and party conventions. Now, I fully understand the challenges, the frustrations, and the problems that led the National Assembly into trying to make law limiting every political party to having direct primaries. I quite understand it. But I am also of the view, a personal view, that indirect primaries can also be democratic. Direct primaries can be democratic. Caucuses can be democratic. And consensus can also be democratic. But what is paramount is what the political actors make of it. Because I believe that one of the greatest challenges we have, why the electoral management body is trying to improve, is trying to progress, is trying to make the votes count, there seems to be some level of regression in terms of party organization and also in terms of party management. And that is what is leading to all these challenges. And I will demonstrate that in a short while. But if you are talking about the challenges of monitoring direct primaries, if you look at the scenario this way, let us assume that we have, out of the 18 political parties in Nigeria, we have 4 big political parties that have nationwide spread. The implication is that if they want to organize direct primaries, they have to do their direct primaries within the registration areas or within the wards. if they do their direct primaries within the walls, the implication is that the electoral management body has to deploy monitors to 8,809 registration areas. Now, if the political party wants to do presidential primaries separately, governorship primaries separately, national and state assembly primaries separately, the implication is that the electoral management body has to go to these registration areas 3 times. And we are talking of 18 political parties. But that is also one side of the coin. If you check, the Independent National Electoral Commission released the list of polling agents that the political parties will deploy for the purposes of the conduct of elections in Anambra State. Now, 18 political parties gave the Independent National Electoral Commission the notice for the conduct of their party primaries. And the Independent National Electoral Commission went and monitored the party primaries of 18 political parties. Now, if you look at the list we released today, one of the political parties, the Boot Party, we have a total of 5,720 polling units in Anambra State. They are not deploying a single polling agent or party agent to any of the polling units in Anambra State. We have a total of 326 registration areas or wards in Anambra State. They are not deploying a single polling agent to any of those areas. We have 21 local government areas in Anambra State. They are not deploying even one party agent to any of those local governments. And they are not deploying any agent to the State Collation Center. So you can see that when you have direct primaries and then the National Assembly appropriates so much funds for the monitoring of these party primaries, at the end of the day, the parties are also not doing what they are supposed to do, what they are permitted to do. But I agree that the National Assembly is trying to find a way around it. If you look at the amendment they made to Clause 31 of the present bill pending before them, what they have done is to remove the proviso to Section 31 that insists that no matter the type of opaque primaries a political party conducts, that the Independent National Electoral Commission must accept the list of candidates and their personal particulars that emerge from that party primaries. Rather, they have replaced that with the fact that the Independent National Electoral Commission is only obligated to collect the list of candidates that emerge from valid party primaries. So I think that the word validity is the key word. So if a political party conducts opaque party primaries, the Independent National Electoral Commission can refuse to accept the list of candidates submitted by that particular political party, and the party has an option under Section 285 of the Constitution to go to court to challenge the action of the Independent National Electoral Commission. So whether direct primaries or indirect primaries or caucuses, the moment the bill is passed and it becomes law, the Independent National Electoral Commission has the capacity to monitor the primaries of all the political parties.
Okay. Oh, well. We'll talk in more detail about some of the factors that may arise from that, but we do have a number of reports, and we'll at this point take the first one of them. This one is by Ruth Samuel, and it's from Lagos.
The return to democracy in the Fourth Republic promoted the proliferation of political parties. Lagos State, the melting point and economic hub of Nigeria, has had a robust political history. The politics of the state has been dominated by the All Progressives Congress, APC, since 1999, when Bola Ahmed Tinubu became the first democratically elected governor of Lagos State, followed closely by the People's Democratic Party, PDP. Many attributed the tremendous successes recorded in the state to the internal party democracy of the ruling party. The continuity mechanism put in place by party leaders has led to the visible dominance of the party in the state. However, there are those who reasonably argued that good as the internal democracy may sound, it has not to a large extent helped to promote political developments of parties. Recently, Two of the country's major political parties, APC and PDP, conducted congresses ahead of their various national conventions. The conduct of the congresses showed that internal democracy is yet to birth within political parties, as the state ruling party witnessed a bazaar of parallel congresses, while the PDP had an inconclusive congress marred by electoral violence in the state.
Parallel congresses are inimical to the overall interest of the parties and Nigeria itself.
When you fail to discipline people, you are encouraging them to do it the next time, and encouraging others also to see the reasons why they should, cause crisis within the party.
Meanwhile, the Senate's approval of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Inec, to transmit election results electronically where and when practically is seen by political observers in the Lagos state as a welcome development, as it will give credibility and transparency to future elections, and 2023 general elections will serve as a litmus test.
He's actually trying to let the country believe that they can do it, especially with the support of the Senate and every other thing. Then they should work on those gray areas, the areas of electricity, 24 hours electricity without non-stop, without any outage.
As you are voting, it's being recorded, electronically. So it's a fantastic thing that can happen to us.
The report speaks volumes. But again, we have seen what's going on currently, and these are some of the questions we'll be asking tonight. Why is it that all over the country, the question of primaries, cutting across parties, is one big one that cannot be answered? And talk to some Nigerians and they'll tell you they've lost count of the number of parallel primaries that have been held, and not just in one party, in just about all the parties that have taken part. But these are issues we'll be talking about in the next part of this program, because right now we'll take a short break. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, this is the segment where you get to be part of the discussion. The lines will be on your screen. You can take advantage of those lines and call in to ask your questions or air your views on the matter of the subject of discussion tonight. Let's remind you that once you get through to the studio, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And keep your questions and comments straight to the point and waste too much time on greetings. So thanks for being with us, and we're exploring further critical aspects that might eventually become law as Nigeria fine-tunes the electoral system. And just before the break, we talked about the issue of primaries. Quickly, we've seen primaries conducted across the parties, and it's been the same thing, wranglings all over, parallel primaries, just about all the parties. Senator Guy, what is the matter with this?
Well, you see, on what brings up mostly general parallel primaries is when party members are aggrieved. And they get aggrieved because of the selection of the delegates. When you feel that the delegates that were selected to do your primaries are not your people, or there was no democratic process on electing these delegates, that means somebody just wrote their names and agreed. And so definitely the aggrieved people will now say, oh, let them hold their own primaries, and this is why you have a problem. But when you go for direct primaries, that is conducting primaries in every ward in that state or in that constituency, it may be difficult for other people to also stage this. But we also put it by law that INEC shall supervise or monitor the primaries, and which means INEC should only monitor primaries that are legitimate, which means the party endorse that, or write a letter to INEC and so on.
Okay, but this tends to be a little bit difficult now, because when parties are split in the middle, which party now
when you have the national chairman or the national secretary and other members write to INEC to survive the primary on a state, social state, that is authentic documentation.
We have seen factions of parties, each one claiming to be the authentic one and writing letters and claiming that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the list that INEC has, they are sure of who are the right candidates, because I know the problem that went
and then sometimes going to court and there are different, decisions, and of course, and then INEC now reverses.
Well, certainly the INEC has to obey the decision of the court. Okay. But even in our law, we said that when we're holding primaries, the court should not stop those primaries until maybe the case is over.
Okay, we have our first caller tonight, Ibrahim calling in from Niger State. Hello, Ibrahim, go ahead.
Good evening, my respected panelists and Mr. Siristoba. Well, mine is not a question per se, it's just a little suggestion. I feel, to my own little knowledge, when you say a body is independent like INEC should be given the opportunity to conduct a free, fair, and credible election by using the method they feel it is very good for this country. So for any other body to begin to dictate to INEC on what to do, I feel it's like you are trying to seize the independence from them. So that is all my own suggestion. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ibrahim. Let's go over to Honorable Ogenema Ego. It would seem that internal democracy is a big challenge for all the political parties.
Indeed, internal democracy is a challenge, and that is what creates problems in parties. If parties are fair to everybody, there will not be factions. But when you see that some people peddle influence and try to undermine other people's position in the party, then there is a problem. What I think parties need to do is for them to play by the rule. Every party has its constitution. Obey the constitution. People should not go and use their old position to say, oh, I was this, I'm BOT, I'm so person, or I was a former chairman of the party or secretary of the party, or I'm a governor, or I'm a this, etc. Then you use that influence to try to rig election. And let me say one thing, that most parties lose election because of lack of internal democracy. Because if party members are not happy with what is being done, if they are not happy, they feel that there's oppression within the party, of course, you find out that they will vote for the opposite party. They will do anti-party activities. Sometimes, if they love the party so much, they will just decide to stay at home or decide not to work hard, to bring voters out to vote for their party. So at the end of the day, you find out that parties that are democratic, where they try to favor some people, at the end of the day, you find out that they lose out. Like, for instance, look at the case of Zamfara, where they refused to do a primary the way it's supposed to be done. They won election, and of course, the opposite party benefited. So these are the kind of things. We hope that the leaders in the various parties, elected people in the various parties, are hearing and learning, because a lot of the parties have lost states, some have lost senatorial area, House of Rep area, lost local government election, and even governorship, because of lack of internal democracy. Because the person who feels aggrieved would certainly have supporters, and it will take a lot of reconciliation to get him to work for the party. So what I think parties need to do is to be as fair and firm as possible to obey the constitution of their party, to give every party member a chance, both to contest election, both to participate in primaries, and to participate in the activity of the party. If a party is free like that and does everything, you find out that they will continue to have people even from the opposite party. Because the opposite party people will say, if these people can push me out, let me go to a party that is fair. If I work hard here, I'll be able to have my victory. So, at the end...
All right. Well, let's quickly return to the phones. We have a Douglas calling in from Lagos. Douglas, if you're there, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stowa. Hello? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Am I with you?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I am glad to add my voice to the discussion this night, and I duly recognize the input, the intervention, and the information provided by the able panelists. Thank you, Mr. Soba, for a job done well. I will ask to be allowed to take my discussion beyond, just electronic transmission of results, and state that we should make every effort to accommodate credible elections within our policy. Electronic transmission of votes, by the way, happens on the floors of the National Assembly all the time. We have not seen any report of rigging there. So the notion of an election is the most important ingredient of a democracy. And if this all-important ingredient is soiled, then there is no democracy at all. So my one and only point is that everyone who knows what to do in order to have a credible election in Nigeria is indeed a distinguished nation builder. Anyone doing otherwise is the real enemy of Nigeria. Why? Because the moment a Nigerian politician realizes that his ascendance to power and or continued stay in power is derived from citizens' votes, which he must earn dutifully, he will be very dutiful while working to ensure he earns such votes. But if there is a backdoor, a black market, where he can procure votes, manipulate the system, or peddle his influence, though at the detriment of the office of the Nigerian citizen, that such a politician won't care less anyway. My final take is that electronic transmission of results is an irreducible minimum for holding a credible election. As a matter of fact, if the general elections are known to be credible, it becomes a matter of an enlightened self-interest for competing political parties to field whoever they consider their best candidate. And the debate on direct or indirect primaries will be quickly settled in a manner most beneficial to their overarching objective of winning the general elections. So thank you, Mr. Soba. Thank you, the gentlemen, the panelists, and do have a happy deliberation and good evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Douglas. And let's bring in Mr. Osita Okechukwu at this point. Well, if the parties can get it right, Nigerians said, yes, what's wrong with legislating and making them toe the line, since they cannot on their own? Yes, people got together voluntarily, yet they cannot abide by the guidelines that they themselves set. So should another body perhaps make those rules and enforce them?
There's no better body that will get our internal democracy to be enhanced more than the Inec. The National Assembly here, they are doing a good job trying to cover the loopholes and the leakages. What they are doing essentially is commendable, highly commendable. But as I said earlier, the more our electoral process becomes more credible, free, fair, and transparent, the more the political parties will do introspection, self-censorship, and try to do their best to produce their best. Because if you make any mistake of not producing your best, you lose. That is, we're all human beings. Every one of us, we have all our friends, we have our preferences, we have our emotions, we have our sentiments, we have our stereotypes and prejudices. But when you remember that because Osita Okechukwu is your friend, you are putting me up for the presidency or for governorship or for Senate, and you remember that if we do so, that I'm not that popular to win, it becomes self-censorship. And everybody will plead, Osita, please don't go. We have examined all the parameters. We've done some inquiries with the electorate. Because as I said, both the 9 or 11 political parties in the United States of America, they are not up to 30% of the American electorate. The 18 or 100 political parties in Nigeria is not up to 30 or 40% of the Nigerian electorate. Same all over the world. So let's pay more attention on credible election. If we have credible election, you will even spare the judiciary involvement. Because if the election is transparent, most of those who will lose will say, okay, we know why we lost, and they will congratulate the winner. If the 2015 presidential election wasn't transparent, maybe President Goodluck Jonathan could have considered defeat. He did so when he looked at the parameters of the election. We're not saying it must be 100% perfect, but the more the percentage of credibility of our election, the more the political parties will call themselves to order. We have membership, and our membership also can tune and decide what will happen. But if the election is not credible, the membership will lose their capacity to decide what goes on internally of the parties. So my advocacy is that, yes, what the National Assembly is doing by trying to present the ideal, which is direct primaries, it is okay, but it's better off if we continue to encourage Inec to do better. The more they do better, the more our democracy will grow. Already, we should thank our stars that we have reached what they call the zenith of liberal democracy, where two political parties are dominant in a multi-party system. If PDP remains strong and APC remains strong, there will also be a checkmate on the behavior of each other. Because when you look backwards, because today APC is the ruling party, if we look backwards and see that PDP is strong, it will even help us in governance and help us to get the electorate to appreciate us more.
Okay.
If anybody who is a governor knows that nobody can win him, the other party cannot come, it become emotional and sentimental.
Fine.
So I think that
time to go back to the phones now, and we have Umar Anachi, I believe, from Birnin Kebi. Umar, go on.
Yes, thank you, Zero. My name is Umar Anachi, calling from Birnin Kebi. My honest appreciation. I would like to appreciate the National Assembly this time around for the job well done. The issue of direct primaries or indirect primaries, to me, is not an issue. What is important is to give power to where it belongs. Power belongs to the people. And it is power that is given to the people to select their leaders is quite commendable to the National Assembly, particularly the Committee on Inec. We recommend it. The second issue to make it perfect is, one, to abolish state Inec. The state Inec is nothing more than an extension of government house. Two, to make provision for electronic transfer of results. This is very, very important. These two aspects, they are very important to strengthen our democracy. May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Umar Anachi. Let's go over to Washington now, and Professor Mimiku. Yes, people come together without any compulsion, voluntarily. They decide to form an association, eventually becomes a political party, yet the same people cannot abide by the set of guidelines they approved for themselves. Now, why is internal democracy such a big problem in Nigerian politics? Or is it, as one or two people would say to you, that politics is essentially conflictual?
Well, basically, essentially politics is conflictual. Politics is about the contestation for usage of power. I think the more fundamental issue, Cyril, is the nature of the Nigerian state and what it is used to accomplish by those who are in possession of it. Nigeria is essentially a rent-seeking society where the state, rather than being a promoter of development, is actually a factor in the demobilization of the people. All of the issues we have identified, internal democracy or lack of it, electoral malpractice and all of that, they all speak to the fact of the desperation of the key players in the political process who see in the Nigerian state an instrument of primitive accumulation. And that is what underscores the nature of the desperation that you see demonstrated in the attempt to capture the state, either through a corruptive electoral process at the party level, either in terms of rigging elections at the general election level. They all speak to the same issue about the nature of the state. And we must begin to find a way to step back and see what nature of reforms and reconstruction that we need to undertake. Number one, we must begin to make the people the centerpiece of the democratic process. We must have a viable law and order regime such that those who violate the laid down rules and regulations regarding, for instance, the electoral process, not just at the level of the parties, that the general must be punished. We must be able to ensure that the big role of people we call godfathers, who, because of the assets they have to resources, they tend to corrupt the political system. We must look at that and find a way to reduce such influences. We must look at the issue of financing of the elections. Electoral financing process is very key. It's a key factor in the corruption that we see underscoring the Nigerian political process. All of this must be taken in tandem and taken together before we can begin to have the right perspective towards how congresses are held, internal democracy, and indeed general election itself. We must be able to focus on the nature of the state. Why are people so desperate to capture political power in Nigeria? It is because the state is used essentially as an instrument for primitive accumulation. If we don't solve that fundamental problem, we will continue to talk about these issues, which are symptoms. The fundamental issue is, what do we use the Nigerian state to do? Is it to promote development, or is it an instrument in the hands of the governing elite to rip off the generality of the people and make a mess of the entire political process? This, I think, is the major issue that has to be addressed. Thank you.
All right. Okay, but let's go to Mr. Festus Okoye. There are two things I want to quickly take up here, which can help. In the first place, how difficult is it, and just how hard does it make the task of Inec when you have to cope with different decisions within a very short period? A court pronouncement says this is the rightful candidate or the rightful leader of this party, and before you even have time to begin to acknowledge that, there is another ruling. How difficult does that make your job?
It's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult in the sense that Section 287 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria makes it mandatory for the Independent National Electoral Commission as a public trust, as a public commission, as a public agency, and as a corporate citizen to give effect to valid orders from a properly constituted court of law. So that makes it difficult. Now, it's even more difficult when you get court orders from courts of coordinate jurisdiction and from different geopolitical zones. And some of them, as a lawyer, you know that some of the courts that have given these decisions do not have the geographical jurisdiction or even the substantive jurisdiction and virus to give such court orders. But you are bound as a commission to obey these court orders unless vacated by a court of law or by a higher court of law. But you know, the provision we have in the Electoral Act in relation to post-election matters is much more clearer and more dynamic than what you have in relation to pre-election matters, because in a post-election matter, when a tribunal, an election petition tribunal, gives its judgment, the judgment does not come into effect immediately until 21 days has elapsed. If the candidate that lost does not appeal within a period of 21 days, then the judgment takes effect. But if the candidate appeals within a period of 21 days, there's more or less like a stay of execution of that particular judgment. But we don't have the equivalent provision in pre-election matters, and that is why today we get a court order, and then tomorrow a court order comes from a different geographical jurisdiction, from a court of coordinate jurisdiction, and we are bound to obey it. But I mean, it's commendable that the president of the Court of Appeal brought some level of order by impaneling a special panel to deal with all this multiplicity of court orders. And the Chief Justice of Nigeria also waded in and brought some level of order. So we believe that one of the things that the National Assembly really needs to do is to also to provide the type of guidance we have in relation to post-election matters and import it into pre-election matters. And I believe that that will bring some level of sanity and some level of order in the process.
Right. Let's return to the phones now. We have Ada calling in from Jos. Hello, Ada.
Hello, Ada from Jos. Good evening, Cyril, and your panelists.
Good evening.
Okay, that's Ada from Jos. It's unfortunate that we have a democracy that about 70% of the stakeholders are not Democrats. That's why we have so many of them involved in politics without principles, which has led to parallel congresses and all that. So we have very weak institutions. So when people talk about according about the method, whether it's direct, whether it's indirect, whether it's consensus, I don't think that is the issue of the Nigerian problem. The problem is once they don't obey those democratic principles, we will have problem no matter the particular method they use. So, and again, I want a situation whereby if the National Assembly, why they are amending this particular Electoral Act now or bill, I will let them do it in such a way that Inec should not be at the mercy of court orders. Any party, let them amend it in such a way that any party that is not able to arrive at who will be their candidate, there should be a duration. If they must sort it out before Inec should even give them any attention. Let them amend it in such a way so that if their party cannot, then the party will be disqualified from the onset, not exposing Inec to court orders and all that. Then another thing I want to ask I think you have I don't know, you have if somebody from National Assembly there. Even if you don't have, at least somebody can answer this question. The question I want to ask is this. I don't like this idea of each time they will be giving the impression that they have done their own bit, that is left for the president to now assent to it. I don't know, other democracies, there's a provision there, even in our own, in our constitution. There's a provision there that if the president refuses to assent to a particular thing that is of national interest, and they all agree that it's of national interest, we should have done it. They still have something to do. They don't want to do that. And that is why most times our presidents are just like, they do what they like because nobody is checking them, So I guess that if they do that, when it's something that's important, the president will accept it immediately. So that's it. So I don't know. I just hope, we'll just get over all these problems. Inec, the way I see them, the body language of Inec now, Inec wants to conduct a credible election. If they were serious about this election, I'm sure they would have made use of it in November elections. I mean, this Anambra one that's coming up. And we can't continue like this. That's why we most of us don't want to go and vote again. Nobody, your vote is not going to count. So why go and stand in the rain and in the sun? God bless you. Let's not give up in this country.
All right. Thank you very much, Ada. Well, some issues Ada has raised there. But before we get to those issues, let's get to see this report by Awal Salisu. It's from Kano.
Home to founding politicians of the First and Second Republics, Kano people are politically informed, which gives them some level of independence that makes imposition relatively impossible, though in recent times becoming susceptible to it because of what some analysts described as absence of internal democracy.
governor that emerged through a Congress system now decided to take the primaries of his political party to his choice area, choice venue, bring people that he believes are answerable to him.
During the Second Republic, whether you are the governor of the state or your commissioner or whatever, or the party chairman, you are no bigger than the ordinary member of the party.
Even though you see people, whenever there is a phenomena, they are trying to attribute it to the past. What happened in 2019 leave so many doubts in the mind of APC members.
Some politicians are of the opinion that internal democracy still exists in the parties, and that should not mean there will be no crisis.
I think Nigeria is doing well in terms of democracy, and the party is doing great in terms of internal democracy.
Nobody can have control over the party because the party has its roots at the grassroots level.
Youth and women who form large groups that go to the polls to determine the leaders and the representatives at both national and subnational levels feel most affected by what is happening in most of the strong political parties in Nigeria. According to analysts, lack of internal party democracy comes with cost, as it paves way for leaders and representatives that are not competent to emerge.
But what the political parties are doing nowadays is what they call consensus. They just included in their constitutions that they can either do elections or arrive at consensus. And that consensus is a way of circumventing, of avoiding elections.
According to them, the available national infrastructure, including mobile network coverage, were adequate to provide for electronic transmission of election results.
Awal Salisu from Kanu. And the next report we're taking here would be by Kingsley Amajiri from Port Harcourt.
Before the latest amendment, the perceived absence of internal party democracy has been a major concern across political parties. This has resulted in cases of parallel congresses.
The direct primary thing will reduce, on its own positive aspect, will reduce political litigations that arise out of state congresses and world congresses. People will now rush to court to say they were excluded, the processes were irregular, and so on and so forth. You know why they do that? Because they believe that candidates that will emerge from those congresses will ultimately, one day, be delegates to primaries.
What we propagated in 2018, National Assembly in 2021 had given a nod to it, that everybody who is a member of the political party should have a hand in the making of who leads you.
The decision of the two chambers of the National Assembly to provide for electronic transmission of election results and direct primaries followed divergent reactions from the populace since the last amendment.
It's a good thing. I praise them and I thank them for taking a bold step to allow electronic transmission of results.
We need a situation where our power, electricity, is working so that Inec will not say, because of no light, we cannot do this or that, but the approval is welcome by every reasonable Nigerian.
We are not against it, but we know that it will be very difficult.
Minister of Transportation Chibika Amechi said the electronic transmission of results would help to check manipulation of outcome of elections and give the populace the right to choose their leaders.
With this electronic transmission, there will be no writing of results. And even if the electronic transmission is not part of it, that everybody will be at the counting center.
Keen observers hope the bill will receive speedy assent from the president to make the changes effective.
Kingsley Amajiri from Port Harcourt. And back to the phones, we have Ololade who's calling in from Kwara. Ololade, go ahead.
Good evening, panelists. What I will advise is that I want to commend Inec
and also the National Assembly. But the most important thing is that we should also, as we are discussing these bodies, we should also discuss the issue of judiciary, because definitely there is going to be pre-election matter. Courts are not restaurants; they are there to entertain cases. So, if any party make mistake, I think the judiciary should have a time lag for pre-election matters, so that it will not hamper the election. But at the same time, the issue of direct or no direct, I think they should have make direct legal and also indirect legal and consensus, because there is no perfect arrangement in any of the system that we are talking. Senator Gaya and Osita has even said it, Oga Osita. Senator Gaya, too, as a politician, knows what to do. It sounds so good in the ear of anybody that's not a politician when they are hearing direct, but that direct itself has a lot of flaws. Because I'm a delegate, I know most places, they don't even conduct it still. They just cite figure. And also, I'm looking at the area of capacity. Will Inec have the capacity to be in everywhere if we have like 4 serious political parties? So we have to consider all these things. But the ultimate who will decide is the voters. If you made a mistake by maneuvering or imposing candidates, at the end of the day, the voters, the general populace, now we are having a good transmission system. We are having election is counting now in Nigeria. I must commend Inec for that. So if you do mistake by maneuvering or presenting unpopular candidates, the voters will decide and vote otherwise. We should not flog ourselves with this type of issue of this and that. The primary system should be left for political parties to decide. If they decide to do what is needful, the better for them. But it annoys me a lot that when you call yourself the same family, why are you checking yourself in the primary? By presenting somebody they didn't even know the party who came from overseas or somewhere, they just impose one person against the party's wish. It's not the best. So if you are not popular, let other people they vote. Some party members too may shun voter party. They may decide not to come or vote for that or vote for other candidates in the other party. But the most important thing, I appreciate the fact that voter party will be reduced in Nigeria with the system and the manner Inec is conducting election under the Yakubu administration. Thank you very much.
All right.
I'm very grateful to the panelists.
Okay, thank you, Olalade. Well, back here in the studio, let me go a little bit back to 2 issues that a caller from Jos Ada raised. One of them first is the question of veto, where she says, look, what's happening? If the National Assembly is convinced that a bill they have passed is good for Nigeria and a president thinks otherwise, why haven't we seen the National Assembly using
Well, for example, on the issue of this bill, the Electoral Act, it has not gone to that level.
Right.
Because the bill has not gone to the president yet.
Yeah.
But you find that for the other bills, like the Petroleum Act, the president signed the bill.
Right.
And if the president didn't sign it, will come back to the National Assembly for us to look at it. What are his merits for, what are his reasons for not signing? If we look at the reasons, we are convinced he gave us reasons. Just like the Electoral Act, when it was passed in 2018, the president didn't sign the bill simply because it was too close to election and a lot of issues were introduced, electronic voting and so on. So the president didn't sign. And we now, when we came back to this this 9th Senate, we now took up the bill, put up the amendment made by the president, and then the new amendment made by the people, and we came up with now a new bill that will go to the president. So it is when a president refuses to sign a bill, and that bill is very important, the interest of Nigerians, then we can veto the president and pass the bill.
Okay, so this is just for the purposes of explanation, because I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, this bill has no go to
but again, if you look at it, it's never happened in the history of this country since the return to democracy. Many times the sitting president had refused to sign a
if
bill.
you refuse to sign, he give us reasons and areas why he needs to amend.
And so all the time, the various assemblies had looked at a president's decision not to sign, and they had agreed with him, and no one has ever thought about it.
Well, if the reasons were good enough, we'll agree with him. For example, the Electoral Act, I gave you good reason that he said he can't sign because they have introduced electronic voting and electronic transfer just few weeks or few months to the general election, which they cannot, the INEC cannot even buy those machines for the electronic voting within that period, and the fund may not be provided. And even if funds are provided, it takes over a year to get these electronic units or machines into the country.
Well, our last caller tonight would be Isiaku, who's calling in from Birnin Kebbi. Hello, Isiaku, go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Cyril. First of all, I would like to align myself with the past callers by showing the appreciation to the Senate that had made this possible for us to see this day. You see, direct primaries is one of the most important things that we are supposed to have been doing. Secondly, my advice to please INEC is to align myself to that Anache that called you earlier, that they should abolish, please, the state INEC, because that's the tool of government in probably toying with the lives of its citizens. There is no point in probably creating state INEC in which a governor will just appoint people from his own party and conduct a kind of state election, and you see the whole state, the whole state is being wiped. The election is wiped up by the same party of the governor. They are a tool controlled by the governor. Please, I want the representative of INEC here, please, to get this so that you advise the chairman of the INEC that state INEC should be abolished. Let the state elections be conducted by the national body of the INEC, please. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's quickly go over to let's go over to the member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Ogene Ima Ego, who's here. Quickly, how do you respond to the calls that state independent electoral commissions should be scrapped?
I support it 100%, because with probably exception of Kaduna, there is no state in the country where the opposition party have won an election and they are declared. The results are always manipulated by the ruling party, where the governor is. At best, they may give councillor to the other party. And if the opposite party wins some councillor, they may just give them like one. So as it is now, I think it's just a waste of state resources to conduct a local government election. It will just be better to say, okay, when you are the governor, nominate your councillor, nominate your chairman of local government. Because every state where election takes place, with little exception, all the chairmen are won by the party that the governor is in charge of, all the councillors, the same thing. And I think this is very bad, because people take time to prepare for this election. And the youth, especially go for councillorship, it increases their interest in democracy. They invest a lot of their hope on it that they will win election. So when there's rigging at that level, all the youth grow up to feel that, well, elections are supposed to be rigged. Elections are not supposed to be free or fair. So if there's anything we in the National Assembly can do to help this political system, I think it is to cancel state INEC. State INEC are proved that they are not useful, they are proved that they are not honest, they are proved that they are not capable, they are proved that they are stooges of various governors in the state. I'm sure that even the governors themselves know that. You know, maybe because they are in office, they will say, oh, let state INEC be here. But once they leave office, of course, they will say, look, state INEC should not be there. So I think that state INECs should be abolished. They are demonic politically.
Senator, do you agree with that?
Well, first of all, I agree with his view that the elections at the state level is conducted by the state Inec, people don't really have much confidence in those elections. But you see, at national level, we do not have power to take over the State Electoral Commission. They are independent, and there is no way the National Assembly can legislate on them. The only local government that we can legislate are the FCT local government, the 6 local government under the federal FCT. Those are the only local government that we can legislate. And in our Electoral Act, we have already stated even the duration of the time FCT local government chairman should last for, we said 4 years into 3 years by many other states. And then also all the rules in the Electoral Act complies also with the Inec, the local government chairman at that level, because FCT is part of, it's under our jurisdiction. But we do not have powers over the state. It's constitutional. But if the governors will agree to say that they are scrapping the state Inec and pass it down to national Inec, I think that would have more free and credible elections.
Well,
because the state elections, they use Inec register for elections.
Okay. Wouldn't that be a tall one for the governors to say, let's scrap the state independent electoral commissions? Mr. Osita Okechukwu, what are your views on that?
My view had always been that there's a conspiracy by the governors of both parties throughout the federation in trying to stunt the growth of Nigerian democracy and also working against restructuring. But when I hear some of the governors canvassing the restructuring of the Nigerian Federation, there are 2 questions that come to my mind. One is that in the 80th National Assembly, Mr. President did all he could to get the local council to have direct first-line charge of funding. The governors conspired and voted it out. Where Mr. President even succeeded in getting first-line charge of funding to the state legislatures and the state judiciary, and it got passed, and Mr. President assented by the 80th National Assembly. The governors up to tomorrow refuse to implement that law, Section 1213 of the 1999 Constitution that was amended. Mr. President waited for them for a good 2 years and went ahead to promulgate the Executive Order 10. The governors went to court. On the local government, if they had even allowed direct funding of local governments, it could have meant a lot for the growth of Nigerian democracy. So for the state Inec, it is a very big misnomer to have left such lacuna in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I support what Honorable Ogene and the distinguished Senator Gaya is saying, that for democracy to grow in Nigeria, it must have imprint at the grassroots level, because Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is very succinct in saying that the local government of Nigeria must be shall be democratically elected. But the governors breach it on a daily basis, except, as he said, the good effort made by Malam Nasir Rufai of Kaduna State, where he even used electronic transmission and made sure that wherever the opposition won, the opposition had their day. So I think for the growth of Nigerian democracy, or even for us, part of why I do not even support the issue of state police is because I said the governors have become emperors. They control the finances of the local council.
Okay.
They control their affairs.
All right.
And if you give them additional state police, what will happen?
Okay.
When you have no independent judiciary at the state level, you have no independent legislature at the... What?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Okechukwu. At this point, let's ask Professor Mimiko the same question. Do you subscribe to calls for the scrapping of state independent electoral commissions?
Put it this way, to say that a federal republic is supposed to be made up of the federating units and the central government. It's a misnomer when you have the local level pretending to be a government federating unit, as it were. And that's the challenge that we have with the 1999 Constitution that suggests that the local government is an independent arm of government. And so the reality is that the local governments are supposed to be an adjunct of the state. There's no question about that. And rather than continue to have these so-called elections that are no elections, we probably should allow the states to run the local governments as real adjuncts and appoint those who, they are convinced have what it takes to run those local governments. Because technically, local governments are supposed to be like the puppets of the state government. And so in the federation, you cannot ask that we take again the local government away from the states and add it to the functions of the central government when we already say the central government is already too powerful. At any event, you don't, if an agency is not doing well, you don't abolish it. You find a way of working at it to ensure that it improves. Look at the Nigerian police force, for instance. You cannot say that we have a perfect policing arrangement, a perfect policing regime in the country. The solution should not be to abolish the police. It's to continue to work at it to ensure that we improve. And so to suggest that we cancel the local electoral bodies that are supposed to strengthen decentralization of power is, to me, a challenge to the very basis of a federal system. But beyond that, let me just say perhaps as a final contribution to this whole debate, that elections are so important. Yes, elections alone do not democracies make, but we know that in the representative democracy as we have, elections are so critical. And it's a whole gamut. When we talk of electoral integrity, it's about the formulation of laws, it's about conduct of election proper, and it's about adjudication. And in all of this, Inec has a big role to play. I believe so much that the rules and the regulations that we have today give enough room for Inec to be independent and to operate as an independent body. In terms of operations, in terms of the funding and the financing, Inec has what it takes to really operate as an independent body. And I think the onus is on Inec to come up with the will to do the needful and it puts some sanity into the entire process. I cite one example out of many. You look at the by-elections that we have had in this country. In many of the constituencies where you have the by-elections, in spite of Inec, the security forces practically make it impossible for elections to hold, to be free and to be fair. I think it's important that Inec puts its feet down and in such situations give a challenge to the security agencies and let them know that if they do not allow these things to be handled in a free and clear manner, we can as well not have the elections.
All right, Professor Femi Mimiku. All right, thank you so very much for being part of this program. At this point, we have to leave this conversation and say Professor Femi Mimiku of the Department of Political Science, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, former Vice Chancellor of Adekunle Ajasin University. We say thank you very much for joining us from Washington via Zoom. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on this program. Thank you. All right. We're just in the last few minutes of this program now, so let me go to Mr. Festus Okoye quickly. There's one matter which we would like you to clarify. With the introduction of the smart cards, would that mean the end of the card reader in the electoral process?
Well, we are gradually phasing out the smart card reader in the electoral process because we now have a gadget that has that is multifunctional. We use the gadget we have now for purposes of voters registration, We also use it for purposes of accreditation of voters during the election. And also we use it for the transmission of the uploading of polling unit results to our central election portal. So we have a gadget that is multifunctional and that is rugged. So we are gradually retiring or phasing out the smart card reader because we have a more modern, a more dynamic, and more ruggedized gadget within the system.
Okay, and hopefully this one won't be fraught with failures and the other issues that we all know bedeviled the card readers.
Well, this one is a more modern gadget. It's more functional, and we have tested it, and we believe that it will do the work for which we brought it in.
Okay, and on the final note, I suppose Nigerians will be looking out for more safety, security for these gadgets. If you know what happens usually at Inec materials, offices go up in flames, and mostly card readers and all that. Let's hope these ones will be spared that kind of fate.
We are working on that.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. It's always a delight to have you join this program. Thank you so much, Mr. Festus Okoye, Inec National Commissioner for Information. He joined us from Port Harcourt via Zoom. Thank you once again.
I appreciate this opportunity.
All right. Back here in the studio, let's hear the last word from Honorable Ogene Ima-Ego. Finally, as we round off, what's your last word on this matter?
Last intervention is that we should just leave INEC to play the role assigned to them by the Constitution. A situation where we say to do electronic voting, you have to go to NCC first to determine it's wrong. I think INEC has proven in recent times that they are capable of improving the electoral system. And I think we should give them that chance, give them that opportunity. We should not make laws to hamstrung them, laws that will make them to fail, laws that will lead to rigging of election and will make the system unpopular. I think we should just give INEC enough room, let INEC do its work.
All right. Thank you so very much, Honorable Ogene Ima-Ego, Member of House of Representatives, representing Amuwo Dofin Federal Constituency, Lagos, elected on the platform of the PDP. I'd like to thank you for being part of this program. Also, let's extend appreciation to Mr. Osita Okechukwu, Director General, Voice of Nigeria. It's always a delight to have you be with us on programs like this. Thank you once again for coming on. Thank you. We appreciate you.
It's a million.
All right. And Senator Kabiru Gaya, Chairman, Senate Committee on INEC, and former Governor of Kano State. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
First of all, I thank you very much for coming to this program to share the views of the National Assembly to Nigerians. And I would like to thank all Nigerians for giving us the support, and including the President himself, because he's waiting for the bill. And I also want to thank the Independent National Electoral Commission for working with us in preparing this bill. And I'm sure this bill is going to improve the democratic process of politicking, and then the process of choosing a rightable candidate, so that we could have right leaders and good leaders for the betterment of Nigeria by tomorrow.
All right. Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's our program tonight. Well, thank you for watching. Big thank you to all those who called in and had their views or asked questions. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.